We'll talk a little Lampkin and then just get out of here. What's going on, everyone? This is the Aggie Game Day Extra podcast. I'm Travis Brown, senior Texas A&M sports writer here at KBTX, alongside sports director Tyler Shaw over here. As usual, Max Crawford is still on assignment with a new baby.
Yeah.
So
you've gotten good at those intros, by the way.
Thank you.
Past few weeks have been pretty flawless.
It's because Max isn't here.
That's
he
true.
makes me nervous all the time.
I get that.
We're finally kind of getting to that point in the year where things are slowing down just a little bit. We have really just baseball, softball, and track.
Yeah, things are kind of... But to kind of, give us a little lift during this when everything's slowing down, we have some big news coming today. The day of recording.
I wish I had like a breaking news sound effect.
Thursday, May 8th, that comes down that we have set a time and date for the Lone Star Showdown for football in November, and it is not Saturday like it was last year.
This is such breaking news. I didn't even have time to make a graphic.
No, this is just on the fly.
This is on the fly. It's gonna be Black Friday.
Yeah,
they're gonna move this game to Friday, not Saturday. November 28th, excuse me, at 6:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
The Longhorns and the Aggies will square off in Austin for the first time since 2010.
Yeah, and we all remember how that one ended with, the kick to. Well, I guess that would have been College Station.
That was College Station. A&M won that one.
A&M won the last Austin one.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll try to kind of do the same again, which the way these rivalries go would not surprise me one bit. They come away with Austin with a win.
I'm curious. I know we're going to have a very different perspective on that than the fan because we have to kind of work these things and whatnot. But to me, Friday or Saturday is fine. It doesn't really matter either way it's played, just as long as it's not on Thursday. I know it's played on Thursday a long time, but
yeah, and some people like that Thursday. Thursday's the worst case scenario. I'm glad it's not Thursday. I mean, if we're strictly talking I would very much prefer Saturday. It's just easier with the way we get into routines during football season, and every A&M game pretty much is played on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just college football Saturday. That's what we prepare all week for that day. That's when the games happen. It's just easier that way. In the grand scheme of things, Friday, Saturday won't make a huge deal of difference. I just hope, for my sake, that some of these high school teams that are still playing in the playoffs at that point kind of understand what's going on and elect to schedule their games for maybe Saturday instead of Friday, because it's hard to cover anything else other than the Lone Star Showdown when you have that big of a game going on. The Egg Bowl's also Friday. They announced that one too, so it'll be a big day of SEC rivalries.
Correct. And with the high school games, those coaches, they like their routines, their schedules, and you would think some of them might be an extra day of rest. But sometimes they just don't they want to keep that, especially if they've gotten that far in the playoffs, you might not want to change things.
Well, and at that point, what coaches a lot of times will do is when you get that far in the playoffs, they start looking ahead to when do they play state. So some of the classifications that play state on Friday would like to start playing their games on Friday. Mm-hmm. Some of the teams that their state is scheduled for Saturday or Thursday even, they like adjusting their schedule to that state game when it gets that far. We'll see how that all works out.
Well, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, just to talk about the Lone Star Showdown, just a little bit more. I believe that's already been decided. Yes.
Yeah, Texas already clinched that. I don't think there's a way, even if A&M won everything else from here on. I mean, there's not a whole lot from here on out. That's the issue. But I think baseball is what clinched it.
Yeah, I like how they don't have an actual scoreboard on here, just who won.
Yeah.
So far Texas has won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12
Now,
matchups.
2 of those are half points, so I think it's 11. Scroll to the top. I think there's a scoreboard.
To the very top?
Yeah.
This is a great podcast right now.
I know. Just on the fly.
On.
There it is. Keep going.
I see.
No. There we go.
11 to 5. So, yeah, Texas is pretty much running away, has run away with this. The only matchups left are men's and women's outdoor track.
Which A&M could win those, both of those.
So
they've got some great track teams.
So the most points that A&M could get is 7, with that 1 point for men's and women's track, which would narrow the gulch a little bit there. But yeah, they've pretty much run away with that one this year in the first year of the return of the Lone Star Showdown with 2 trophies. That still bugs me. You should just have 1 trophy.
Yeah, it needs to be a traveling trophy. That's the only way to do it.
Yes, very much so. Or like, if they want to have each one at like the little ones on each side and have a bigger one, so that like individually they can have one they can hold up, and then like at the end of the year, the bigger trophy
that's a good idea,
goes to the school, so there isn't as much traveling, but like, make it worth something.
Right, not just you each get a trophy and you each get to hold it up.
You trade it off at the football game maybe. That's
something
for
like
the
that.
year past or whatever. I don't know. That's the true trophy thing gets me. But there still is baseball to be played, even though Texas took that series. A&M wins the series against LSU.
Very impressive.
A RPI top 5 ranked LSU at the time. I would imagine that with that series win, A&M is all but pretty much locked up their place in the NCAA tournament. I mean, if they get swept by Missouri, that might make things interesting again. But I think there will be postseason baseball. Mike Gurley's first season.
Before the LSU series, it seemed like the path to get in is you need at least 1 win against LSU, sweep Missouri, and 1 win against Georgia. Well, they already got 2 against LSU, so that puts them in an even better spot. So yeah, unless some collapse happens where they just lose this series to Missouri, if they lose the next 2 series to Missouri and then Georgia, that could get them out. But the way this team is playing, I think you for sure are going to at least win this series against Missouri, you would think, and if you should sweep.
Sure, I think they have the leeway now that if they don't, I think you were looking at before they had to sweep Missouri. Now, if they drop one of those games, if somebody has an off night or something like that, off day, I think they're still fine, especially if they can get 1 or even better 2 wins against Georgia the week prior, because Georgia is still coming in at number 2
in the RPI.
RPI. This week, so they're sitting a lot prettier now than they were coming off of that series sweep against Texas when everything was kind of a little bit back under question, as I think most people thought they'd at least take one of those games against number 1. But the thing that isn't necessarily helping them is for a while it looked like TCU was going to be in that top 16 RPI, potentially hosting a regional, and the natural thing would be put A&M as a 2 seed in that Fort Worth regional. Well, now TCU, they're still there at 14, but I know in the latest D1 baseball they don't have them as a host. And the only 2 really drivable host sites would be Baton Rouge and Texas, and they're not going to send A&M to an SEC school, so they might be a decently long plane ride for that regional now, with not any. It went from looking like there might be several Texas hosts possibilities to really Texas being the only one.
Well, and so what we could be looking at is a situation we had a couple years ago when they sent them off to Stanford. I've seen mocks where they're going to UCLA and these West Coast teams.
To Arizona was one of the latest, I think.
Yeah, and looking back to that Stanford, when you think about how much does home field advantage matter, that Stanford regional was so close between A&M and Stanford. Had A&M hosted that, would that have been any different? Would A&M have gotten over the hump? Would they have gotten out of that regional if it was their own regional? How much of a difference does that make? And especially when you're going in as a very hot team, obviously, but as a 2 seed, I wouldn't imagine they'd have A&M as a 3 seed at this point. But who knows what happens down the stretch? How much does that matter, having that home field advantage in a regional situation?
For A&M, a lot, because they just hit home runs better. I mean, everybody hits home runs better, but the pitching usually steps up well enough, and they just get those timely hits a little bit more in the hitter-friendly park that is Bluebell Park. You look at Dish Falk, which is a pitcher's park.
How many fly balls did they?
How many fly balls did that you think were absolutely crushed that dropped in on the warning track? They only had one home run, that Caden Sorrell home run in the final game of the series. The home run, I know Michael Early, when we asked him before, said they can win games multiple ways, but more times than not, when they've won games, they've hit home runs. They've hit multiple home runs in those games. Now, I kind of parsed together. I wanted to kind of look at some of the splits, some of the different situations, because so much of the conversation when A&M hasn't been winning or playing successful baseball, it's been that they haven't gotten that key hit in the situation that they needed to retake the lead late or something like that. And if you look at some of these hitting stats, it's pretty interesting. On this season, this is the kind of baseline for all of this. They're hitting 273 with a 309 on-base percentage and a 448 slugging percentage, 79 home runs, 330 RBIs, 79 home runs. I put that on there twice. And 405 strikeouts. So the 273 is what really stands out, the batting average. Well, now let's look at those with some other situations. Let's first actually go to with bases empty, no one on. This is actually where they've struggled the most. The batting 335 with a 348 on-base percentage and a 431 slugging percentage, 36 home runs, of course 36 RBIs, and 214 strikeouts. Kind of interesting that it's actually getting the runners on base. Now, I know they're really good at drawing walks, too. I didn't put that on here. But it's actually kind of getting the guys on base and getting that big inning going necessarily that's hurting them more than when they actually have the runners in scoring position. Now, granted, at Texas, they were 4 for 29 with runners in scoring position over the 3 games, I think. But on the season, that idea that they can't get the big hit, it's they kind of have to get the thing started.
And then they get the big hit.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Because they have hitting the home runs, have driving. And the crazy one here, well, with runners in scoring position, 266 average, 294 on-base percentage, 472 slugging, 11 home runs, 94 RBIs, and 56 strikeouts. The crazy one is with bases loaded. Now, we know what happens at the end of that South Carolina game. And we know what happens a lot of times when Caden Kent comes up to bat.
Yeah, he just seems to be Mr. Grand Slam.
He does seem to be Mr. Grand Slam. They're batting 414 with a 470 on-base percentage and a 914 slugging percentage with bases loaded. 10 grand slams this season, which we went back and confirmed. 104 RBIs and 20 Ks. Now, it's a little bit like, well, duh, the odds are going to be a little bit in your favor when you have the bases loaded, but the pressure is also on more when you have the bases loaded.
Yeah, if there's any stat to prove that someone is clutch or a team is clutch, I think this would be it. That's kind of amazing. You go from 235 with the bases empty to 414 with it loaded. I know at the beginning of the season, we talked a lot about just how this team was struggling, and there wasn't really an explanation because we knew that the talent was there in the lineup. They weren't getting those timely hits. Well, now that they've turned things around and they're rolling, they're absolutely getting those timely hits. And coaches talk about hitting at the right times. That just amazes me and is kind of a testament to why they're doing so well when you're hitting and with the bases loaded like that. It's pretty remarkable.
Hey y'all, it's Max, and if you've been watching the pod, you know this by now that we have a new official sponsor of the Aggie Game Day Extra podcast. And it is a familiar face. You know him, you have seen him around Aggieland for many, many years. Say hello to C&J Barbecue. Now, I don't know if there are many of you out there, but if you live in the Brazos Valley and you have not been to C&J Barbecue yet, what on earth are you guys doing? The crew at C&J started out smoking just about 20 pounds of meat a day in a tiny gas station on Harvey Road. Now, they serve over 2,200 pounds every single day across 3 locations. So you know it's good. They've fed President Bush, catered for Willie Nelson. Yeah, Willie. But most importantly, they've been feeding Aggies and locals for over 40 years. In fact, I had myself some at a catering event last weekend, and the brisket was absolutely amazing. Don't even get me started on the sides and the appetizers because Justin is always cooking up some amazing stuff. Just get there, see, smell, and taste for yourself. Tell him the guys sent you. C&J Barbecue, a family tradition.
So we talked a little bit about the hitting and how, especially with the bases loaded, it's not necessarily a matter of getting that key hit. It's kind of building the inning to be able to get to that key hit. At least that's what the statistics say. On the pitching side of things, I think the guy that's intrigued me the most, Prager's had his up and downs. Miles Patton has come in and done a good job on Sunday. But Justin Lampkin is actually putting up a career best season so far. He's been in that Saturday role and really hasn't relinquished. He's at 3-6 with a 3.88 ERA, which is a career high for him this season. From what you've been able to see, does it feel like he's taken that next step to you?
He's been impressive, and I go back to that Texas series. All three of those starting pitchers did enough to win those kind of games. Those were pitcher duel games there in Austin. He was just on fire, and you can kind of see the passion too when he gets off the mound off an ending strikeout. Just that he is in the zone, and I think it's coming at a critical time because, like you said, with kind of Prager having his ups and downs, Lampkin's been kind of that steadying force where, if you don't have a great inning outing on Friday with Prager, your number one guy, you have a Saturday guy you can rely on, and very much so. I think he's earned himself some money this year. This is what it seems like.
Yeah, going back kind of to look at his progression here. As a freshman, 22-23, 3-3 with a 5.92 ERA, 74 strikeouts. But what I want to and then the next year he was still in the 5 ERA, another 3-3 record. But when you look at innings pitched and total pitches compared, he's at 3-6 with a 3.88 ERA this year. He already has more innings pitched than either of the previous 2 years, and he's coming close to the same amount of pitches, and he still has 2 more regular season starts plus any postseason starts that he has coming. So he is way ahead of schedule on success and innings pitched this season, and he's been able to be a lot more efficient and keep some of those runs off the board. Even go back to, you mentioned the Texas, LSU, he was the one game that they dropped, the start of the one game that they ended up dropping, but it was more because they were going up against a buzzsaw in Ianson on the other side than anything necessarily that he did on the mound.
Right. That was another pitcher's duel game with that LSU, and they faced a lot of those. It's the SEC. You're going to face those type of guys. But yeah, some of these games that he's lost, it hasn't necessarily been his fault. He's the what he's done has been impressive. And he's the kind of guy, if they're going to make it out of a regional, it's going to be because of guys like Lampkin stepping up and doing what he does.
And when they've been at their best this year, it's been when the starting pitching has really carried them with Prager. Prager finally got his first SEC win against LSU last week, and it's been a little bit of a struggle for him through SEC play. Miles Patton has been just kind of a steady force there on Sunday. When a Sunday game's kind of anything can happen. But I think having Lampkin kind of really anchor that Saturday game and the improvement that he, dropping almost 2 whole runs off his ERA in as many innings pitched in this junior year. We talked to him today, and he really focused on the fact that when he came into A&M, he had a fastball and kind of a real high schoolish curveball, and that's the 2 pitches that he had. Now he has a fastball, a slider, a changeup that he really leans on heavily and throws well, and the fact that he's just a mentally stronger pitcher. Mike Early said that you really can kind of see it when, not necessarily when guys are mowing guys down, but when they do get in a little bit of a jam, or they don't have their best stuff, they have that ability to kind of fight out of it. And that's something that he's seen from Lampkin this season more so than any other of his seasons, is that when things necessarily aren't going his way, or he goes out there and necessarily doesn't have his best stuff, he finds ways to get out of innings and get through innings and save the bullpen and give A&M a chance to win. He's just been all around better at that this year.
Well, and I think we kind of see the maturity and growth of a guy like Lampkin, where that's when these pitchers are taking the next step, when they add these pitches to their arsenal. Because I'll talk to guys where coming out of high school, Yeah, a lot of them only do have 1 or 2 pitches that they have, and that's all they needed. But every time you take a step to the next level, you need to kind of add more into your arsenal. We're seeing that with Lampkin, the kind of stuff he's throwing, and he's the kind of guy that he's only going to keep adding and adding to it as we see him progress.
So Missouri, a team that does not have a good SEC record this year, just not a good team.
Yeah, that's one
really
way to put it.
Overall, but still an SEC team. I think that they need to be shooting for a sweep this weekend to help solidify, especially even that 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, and then that sets them up to kind of be able to play with a little bit of house money when they're traveling to Georgia at the end of the season. If you look at that, A&M makes the postseason. They're a 2 seed. They have to travel. I know they came off of a national title appearance last year, but it is Michael Early's first year. Do you still see this as steps in the right direction if they do make, as they're sitting now, if they can beat Missouri, make the postseason as a 2 seed?
I see it as a step in the right direction because of how they started the season. I think before the season started, you had all the expectations in the world that they would be hosting a regional, and advancing and hopefully having your eyes on making it back to Omaha because of the way the kind of quirks and everything and the growing pains with this new coaching staff that happened through the first couple months of the season. Absolutely, I think it's a win and it steps in the right direction. Just getting to the postseason at this point, because a couple months ago, before that Tennessee series, we thought they were a long shot to make the postseason. And obviously, if they could get out of regional, make it to supers, that's an even bigger win. But I think just getting there as a 2 seed, I think that's already success in a way for year 1.
It is hockey season. What they say about the hockey playoffs is just get to the playoffs and anything can happen. This team, having been the number 1 team in the nation to start it off, and having kind of found a little bit more of their groove in the last 4 to 5 weeks, save for that Texas series, really. Man, they're a dangerous 2 or even 3 seed in any regional if they really put it together in postseason play. This is certainly a team that could be in the last 8 to 10 teams to get in the field, but could also make a run.
Kind of reminds, I think it was Ole Miss a couple of years ago. Kind of reminds me of them. It's about getting hot at the right time, and A&M is the last 2 or 3 seed that anybody is going to want to see in their regional. So they're going to be dangerous.
Well, that's about all the time we have to talk a little bit of baseball. We'll bring a little bit more softball into the picture as they get out of the SEC tournament. We have their postseason futures, a little bit better idea of what that will be next week, and as track looks ahead to their future, and then we're kind of putting a bow on things for the first year of the season, the first year of the Aggie Game Day Extra podcast.
Our inaugural podcast season.
Things have really kind of turned around since Max has left. So maybe for A&M fans, they don't bring him back. I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. So we'll be around all weekend with coverage of everything that's going on, from baseball to softball going on here in just a few minutes. We're recording on Thursday to avoiding graduation traffic. So be sure to check KBTX.com. The KBTX broadcast will have all the information and all the news from that. And then be sure to return next week. So for Tyler Shaw and the absent Max Crawford, I'm Travis Brown. This is the Aggie Game Day Extra podcast. We'll see you next week.